Welcome to Headline Focus, here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Monday, the 24th of September 2018. It's the day of Labour Party conference, so let's get on cracking with what's going on the news to do with the Labour Party. And this is a big story, particularly running on the BBC at the moment, which is to do with Jeremy Corbyn and the Brexit referendum, the Brexit vote, the outcome of the Brexit vote, and what's going to be happening in terms of Labour Party policy as we get nearer and nearer towards the deadline of March 2019, when the UK is officially due to leave the EU. He is apparently now going to be bound by a Brexit vote at the party conference, which is going to be debated and decided upon today. Now, this is really quite significant in terms of the Labour Party policy on Brexit, but also nationally in terms of the debate, particularly on the differences being offered between the Conservatives and the official opposition, of course, the Labour Party. Now, he is said that members of the Labour Party will get the chance to vote on keeping all options on the table in terms of Brexit. And that is the key line that's coming through in the report. Say all options on the table is being interpreted to mean not just the idea of a people's vote, the idea being particularly put forward by the People's Vote campaign that there should be a second vote on the actual outcome of the negotiations, the deal that we secure with Brussels, but actually a second referendum itself on the EU membership, should the EU and the UK part ways. Now, this is incredibly important because Labour Party policy currently stands as no people's vote, no second referendum. We accept the result of the referendum which happened. We will be leaving the EU. Suddenly, it seems that there's a slight opacity to the Labour Party policy regarding what they are actually going to be putting forward in the next few months. Potentially, they could become a party of either a second referendum on the outcome of the negotiations, or in fact a party which is proposing a second referendum on the entire question itself. There is a caveat to this, which is something you should pick up on all the news reports as well. Certainly on the BBC it's running, that this whole vote on all options on the table is only in the context of if a general election can't be secured. Now, this is important because party policy at the moment, and certainly the senior leadership of the Labour Party's plan, is to leverage and push for a general election as soon as possible. The idea being, if Chequers doesn't work for the Prime Minister, if Brexit doesn't go well for Theresa May, then there should be a national general election for the people to decide what happens next and whether Labour should be given the chance to get into power and to try and work out and negotiate with Brussels. That's certainly the line coming from the Leader's office and something that Jeremy Corbyn wanting to be Prime Minister, or at least Labour wanting to be in government, is really pushing. There is fear that this whole idea of a second referendum, pushing towards a second referendum, would give Theresa May some get-out clause in terms of Chequers not happening or her not getting the vote through in Parliament on the deal that she comes back with, which she's negotiated. And actually, pushing for general election is a far better solution for the Labour Party. But we'll find out. Certainly the motion will be put to a vote today. Looks likely to pass according to reports. The reservation, though, is Labour membership, which is widely reported as being very much soft Brexit, if anti-Brexit, is very different from Labour voters nationally, and whether there would be a kickback on the Labour voters across the country if Labour changed its position to be far softer or indeed anti-Brexit. There's also the fact that you'd be massively open to criticism by the Conservatives and many other parties if Labour became was at least seen as being a party of anti-Brexit. The whole idea of not fulfilling the will of the people, the fact there was a referendum and the people decided, and denying the people the outcome of the vote. It's a very, very easy target for the Conservatives to hit in terms of a general election going forward. And there's also, as I said, the idea of the general election versus people's vote. Other things happening in conference you should know about. John McDonnell, Shadow Chancellor, is giving a speech today. A lot of big headlines should be coming out of that. One of them already being leaked out is a pledge to force larger firms to give 10% of their shares away to their employees. Now, that is a big idea. Naturally, you've got a lot of business discussions around the cost and expenditure of that and the realities of businesses moving abroad if such a policy was to come into practice. But nonetheless, definitely keep an eye on party conference to Brexit and much more in terms of the Labour Party this week. Let's look over into Brexit and the Conservative Party, though. Javid, the Home Secretary, has come under attack from the Brexiters, or some Brexiters in the party, for proposing, reportedly, in the Times really is running this as their scoop, that EU citizens should have limitless access to the UK for 30 months in the event of a no deal. So crashing out of the EU, EU citizens should still maintain that access to the UK 30 months after. Quotes here saying any EU citizen arriving between March and September 2021 will be allowed to live temporarily in Britain. There are some caveats to this, as long as they show their passport, pass a criminal record check, and during this period they have to apply for a new visa under a new migration system to stay permanently. Now, this actually is a really important week for the post-migration policy for the government. The special cabinet meeting today on post-migration immigration policy is happening in Westminster, and Theresa May, Prime Minister, is expecting to announce at her speech in the conference, which is of course next week, Conservative Party conference, she's supposed to unveil this new post-immigration policy, post-Brexit immigration policy for the government. Really significant milestone of that. So that's something to look out for. Certainly in the Cabinet and indeed Conservative Party, generally you can see the extent of the divisions post-Brexit, of course, what's going to be happening, but also particularly to do with migration. Massively different contrasting views on what should happen in migration in terms of workforce, in terms of borders, in terms of treatment of EU citizens versus citizens across the world. So that will no doubt be a very interesting crunch talk today going into next week. Finally, of course, 3 out of 3, Brexit is completely leading the agenda to start the week. There is a new alternative Brexit plan which is being published today, pretty much actually around about as we speak. This whole idea is backed mainly by a lot of Conservative Brexiteers, and it's a post-Brexit free trade deal proposal, 140-page plan. It's a pretty dense stuff, fronted by the Institute of Economic Affairs. It's called Plan A+, creating a prosperous post-Brexit UK. The headline, top line of this in the reports today is put the Brexit negotiations with the EU, in the back. They're not the priority at the moment. Focus on opening trade talks with the rest of the world. So trade is the real push narrative of this new plan. It recommends seeking global trade deals now and using those trade deals, or at least the momentum gained through those trade deals, to put leverage on the EU in the negotiations to get a better deal from the EU and ensure it is good for the UK in terms of securing a future in terms of post-Brexit economic trade with the rest of the world, as well as with the European bloc. This is important because there's a lot of support, reports of a lot of support in the Conservative ranks, particularly those who are pushing for free trade and global free trade, the whole idea of global Britain, but also in the context of Chequers. Chequers is widely being reported now as being pretty much dead in the water. Not much happening. Theresa May really is trying to flog a dead horse with the plan that she's put forward after the Salzburg meeting last week, and of course the mass amount of resistance it's getting openly from a lot of her Conservative backbenchers. And also, again, this comes in the backdrop of the final drop documents setting out government plans for a no-deal Brexit. They will drop this afternoon, probably in a few hours' time, so keep an eye out for those. That's just a really heavy day and agenda in terms of Brexit, both in Westminster and, of course, over at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. That's pretty much it for today. You're up to date to start the week. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we'll be doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and Twitter right here. I'll also be heading up to the Labour Party conference in just a couple of hours, so you can follow me at RJH Double, and I'll be tweeting what I'm finding from up there. No headline focus tomorrow. We'll be back on Wednesday morning with all the news of what's going on in the Labour Party, fresh from conference, at around about probably 10 o'clock on Wednesday. See you then.